you know, you've never just experienced you in the world without the simulation of modern living. You know, of all the things that we consider to be normal and real life, and these things are not. You know, we've constructed all of this over the face of the earth and made it into something that it wasn't before. And it's not natural. Humans are natural, but that doesn't mean that everything we do is then natural, you know. Beavers build dams, but dams aren't natural. It's something the beaver built there. It's not something that occurred by nature. So, yeah. So I think I actually have another piece of my notes here I want to talk about. And this is actually from a Tragedy and Hope episode with Mark Passio. And he says, the relationship of a person to truth requires a willingness to observe and check facts before they form a conviction about any particular theory or event. Belief requires none of this. Both rigid skepticism and complete naivete are symptoms of belief, because neither require a person to be aware of what is actually occurring. Balance is the key to discern truth. So I like that because it you know, a lot of people think that being rigidly skeptical about everything all the time means that they're smart, that's intelligent, and it's not. It's in fact just as dumb as believing everything you're ever told and being completely naive about life, you know, because it's the same thing. It's just the mirror reflection of that same kind of because neither way you're learning, you know. If you're just naive and believe everything you're told, then there's no learning there, you're just believing. And if you're skeptical about everything and refuse to believe things, refuse to accept new information as valid without checking it. Because see, that's the balance point is, you know, when new information comes in, you should be skeptical, but not skeptical to the point that you're rigid and not not willing to look at the validity of that new information. And so it's that balance point of, you know, this sounds possible. I might consider it. You know, I'm not pushing it away immediately. But I'm a bit skeptical as well, and I would like to look into this more before I make a decision on whether or not I think what you're proposing is accurate, true, right. So yeah, that's logic. So now I want to get into more of what I'm talking about in the curriculum with logic. And logic asks and answers the question, why? To understand a person, place, or event logically is to identify it, such as A is A is B, A is C. To know why something is, what, who, when, and where it is to understand it. To know why something is, who, when, what, or where is to understand it. See, so that puts together logic and grammar. It's adding not just blindly accepting the who, when, what, where, and grammar, but then understanding why. And it gets much deeper into to psychology and philosophy, why it does, and it's a theoretical kind of thinking that comes in, after you've done grammar work, which, if you think about it, is logic is pretty much the missing component. Like, if you think about a history class you took in high school or the 5th grade or something like that, all they're concerned with is you memorizing dates and names and places. There's no why. And if why is considered, then it's it's usually a very slim kind of dumbed down, watered down kind of little just one line, kind of trivial thing, or a really poorly concealed excuse for why something occurs. So this understanding of why is kind of the missing key to evaluating information, which is what I call thinking. So naively accepting information, believing it is true, is not thinking. Rigidly being skeptical and pushing away information because you just automatically assume it isn't true because it doesn't fit into your already preconceived, belief system, your reality tunnel, to use the the Robert Anton Wilson term for it. Neither one is logic, is reasoning, and the evaluation of new information is thinking. Pretty much covered that, I think. So, with the law of identity, it breaks subjects down into predicates and essences, with copulas being the middle term of is. Basically an equals sign. And they use the example of a lawyer. That a lawyer is a person who is qualified and authorized to practice law. That's what a lawyer is, And that's again sort of a very desultory sort of example, because in real life you would ask the question, qualified? Well, what's your qualifications? And, you know, authorized, who authorized you? And what are their qualifications? And who authorized them? You know, I mean, that's the kinds of questions that would be asked, you know. If someone knocks on your door and starts telling you what to do, then you would be asking those questions, hopefully, although a lot of people wouldn't. They would just blindly obey because they've been trained for years to do that. And so there's four basic properties that logical systems have. And that's consistency, validity, completeness, and soundness. And I would especially emphasize validity, and that's basically gets us into fallacy. Those the other ones, consistency being that no theorem of the system contradicts another. See, this is kind of getting into formal logic. In terms of theorems, and in terms of proofs, and in terms of formulas. But again, that gets so overcomplicated in the academics world, and it's really just all goes back to that basic formula of is A. You know? And it's really pretty simple and common sense. This is an example of how terminology is kind of used to complicate things that are not really that complex, that can be explained as I'm trying to explain them in simple, easy to understand language that doesn't use a lot of terminology that is really, I mean, I have a fairly vast vocabulary and like big fancy words, and as a writer enjoy, you know, learning new words and new ways of describing things and all of that. But you know, and that's pretty honest. You know, it can be used in an honest way where it's not, you know, just because someone's using big words doesn't mean they're trying to deceive you, but it can be used that way, and often is. And I think this is sort of the way that this all gets buried, is by making it into an extremely complex system that has all these parts to it that you can't explain to a child very easily without really going into it, and then you just kind of bore them, and then they lose interest in it. And you know, it's good to understand what's being said here, but it's not really the sort of common sense approach to logic that I'm emphasizing in this class for Trivium method. There is more to logic, and there's more to Trivium method. I'm here in this class presenting it as an introduction in a very common sense, simplified manner. You know, if you're interested in this, then you need to go study it and learn the more complex versions of it. And in the future, I will be offering more advanced classes in it, but